Hello students, as part of our daily news analysis, today we are going to discuss some articles from The Hindu and Indian Express. And today we have some really good articles. First article talks about Uniform Civil Code. Recently the discussion is going on that there can be Uniform Civil Code in the state of Jharkhand, and BJP party is saying that they are going to bring it. But in this, they are not going to bring tribal elements in it. So it's a very interesting thing to know. The second article is what are major challenges faced by Indian cities. So right now we are observing urbanization with a very fast paced urbanization in India. So here Indian cities are facing some unique challenges. These we are going to discuss in this. Third article, first science result from Aditya L1 mission. So ISRO had sent a mission to Sun. The name is Aditya L1. So the article becomes highly important for us. Then on the new coastal zone plan of Kerala. So coast have to be protected. Kerala has got a good coastal area that has to be protected, and for that a new coastal zone plan has been approved by the central government. Very important. Then sharing resources. This article talks about fishermen issue between India and Sri Lanka. So that we will understand in very short or in very brief. And the last article is BRICS Summit boost to India-Iran ties. So India and Iran, we have a really good historical relationship which is building with time. But right now we are facing some challenges also. So we need to know the interest of Iran and the interest of India in maintaining this particular relationship. So these are all the articles. Okay. So we'll start with each article. Before that, a single announcement that if you have any doubt, please ask in the comment box. Okay. So let's start with the first article related to Uniform Civil Code. Now this topic is highly important for you from prelims as well as mains perspective, specifically for mains GS paper 2, as it covers all the provisions related to Indian Constitution, all the amendments that may take place with respect to the Constitution. And Uniform Civil Code is mentioned in the Constitution itself. If you read Article 44, it clearly mentions that the government or the state should ensure that there is Uniform Civil Code in India. So government can bring it. So BJP party is saying that in Jharkhand, if they come to power, they are going to bring Uniform Civil Code. Okay. Now look at this previous year question. It says that discuss the possible factors that inhibit India from enacting for its citizens a uniform civil code as provided for in Directive Principles of State Policy. That means in Article 44, it is already mentioned that state should bring it. Then why state is not in a position to bring it? What kind of problems they are facing? What are those possible factors? This has been already asked in the year 2015. So you can understand Uniform Civil Code is a very important topic. Now, moving forward, what is Uniform Civil Code? First of all, what is Civil Code or what is a code? See, whenever you have number of laws, let's say you have 1000 laws, different laws are there, and you want to bring all the laws together, you want to codify them, you want to make a particular law book in which you have mentioned all these laws. Now some laws could be customary laws that you are just following it because there is a tradition in your family, in your caste, in your religion, that's why you are following a particular law. Or sometimes there is a law brought by the government. When you codify it, when you bring it in one textbook, that is called codification. Okay, so when you have brought some kind of booklet, let's say CRPC, IPC, such kind of a booklet, that is a code. Now usually we talk about law in two terms, that we have one called civil law, another called criminal law. So one is this criminal law, another one is civil law. What is the difference? See, let's say you have committed a crime, you have killed someone. It is assumed that when you are killing someone, this act itself is against the state or against the entire society. So you are conducting or getting into an act which is against the state itself, and it's a criminal act. That's why it will be considered as a criminal act, and we will have a specific law or a specific code which is called as criminal code, and according to that code, whatever is the punishment that will be given to that particular person. Okay, that is criminal law or criminal code. Now, in case you are committing something which cannot be considered completely a crime in this respect, rather there are two people and there is a dispute between these two people. This dispute does not involve state, only these two individuals. Let's say two people got married. After the marriage, they got into some dispute. Let's say they got divorced. Now one wants that I should also get the property. Such kind of dispute is there. In that case, we are saying it is a civil matter. It is not a criminal matter as such. This is not a crime as such. But this is a dispute. It is a civil issue. So we have a civil code, we have a civil law, and according to that law, if there needs to be given some kind of punishment, we will give that. However, we need to understand that in India, we have laws which can be considered criminal laws. We have laws which can be considered civil laws. But there is an interesting story to it. When you look at India before independence, when the Britishers were ruling on India, at that point of time, Britishers codified the criminal law. That means whatever criminal law exists in India, that is because the Britishers codified it. They brought a single book and applied to every citizen of India. That book was uniformly applied. It was not like you belong to one particular religion, another person belongs to another religion. Let's say you are Hindu, the person is Muslim, that person is a Christian. So when the British Raj was there, it was not like for a criminal act, these three different people will be given different punishment. No. One single law, one uniform law. Uniform means common or same. Exactly same law is being applied to everyone. So there was one book or one law which was codified by Britishers at that time for criminal activities, and that's why we call it uniform criminal law. Okay? But when it comes to civil matters, when it comes to marriage, inheritance, property issues, all these things which come under civil matters, the Britishers did not make one single law. If you look at India, even after independence, we do not have any one law which is applicable to everyone. You can see this here, that when you are dealing with Hindus, you have different law, different personal laws. For example, this Hindu Marriage Act, this one, or Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, etc. Now, please understand, I'm not saying that entirely there is no civil code as such. We have tried to codify it. But when it comes to specifically about personal laws, in India, personal laws varies from religion to religion. I'm saying for Hindus, we have these acts which deal with these issues. Let's say marriage or adoption or inheritance or property issues. Everything will be dealt by these laws. These will govern it. Or if you look at Muslims, their law is usually based on Shariat. Shariat is a Islamic law. So most of the content in the personal laws of Muslims in India gets derived from Shariat directly. Even we have some laws. For example, Shariat Application Act of 1937, Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Act 2019, very recent one. So these are the laws which are governing Muslim population in India when it comes to civil, or specifically in the civil, the personal law matters. Then for Christians and Parsis, they too have different laws. Christian Marriage Act, Indian Succession Act, Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act, etc. So if I have to sum up in simple terms, this uniform civil code, the idea of uniform civil code is that instead of having different laws for different religious groups, when it comes to personal matters, these personal matters could be marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, maintenance, etc. For all of this, in India, there should be one law which is applicable to every Indian. It should not differ from religion to religion. That concept is uniform civil code, that a legal framework which will be applicable to every citizen in India, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of your region. So this is the core idea. Clear? Now, so now if you have understood what is Uniform Civil Code, does this exist in India? The answer is no. But there is one exception to it. That exception is the state of Goa. Now there is a different history of Goa. Earlier, Goa was being ruled by Portuguese. Portuguese used to rule, so they had brought Portuguese law over there. So at that point of time, a kind of uniform civil code was established in Goa. And that is continuing even after independence. Even when Goa got merged in India completely, officially, even after that, the same law continued. So we can say Goa is the only state in India which is an exception to this rule that we do not have a uniform civil code. Clear? Now, how does this idea of uniform civil code comes into picture? How did we even think about it? Well, the idea goes back to 18th, 19th century, specifically 19th century and then early 20th century, not 18th. Now, at that point of time, in the European world, a new idea started emerging, the idea of modernity. Now, as part of idea of modernity, one core part of this modernity was that there should be secularism or there should be secular states. Secularism means the state and the religion should be completely separated and all the affairs have to be taken care of by state. Now here when they were focusing on state moreover, the idea came into picture that we should have a law which is governed by the state. State should decide the law completely and not religion. Religion should not interfere in the matters of making of laws. So here the idea came into picture in 19th century, specifically after at the end of this 19th century and then in the early phase of 20th century. Later on in the year 1804, we saw French code coming into picture. Now this French code is very interesting because here they have clearly established the power of state. It says that it has eradicated all forms of customary and statutory laws, and it said that it will be prevalent and replaced with uniform code. That means earlier in the medieval time period, the laws were more or less influenced by religion. But in France in 1804, what happened? It was being decided that now state will decide what will be laws and there will not be any law which will be influenced by customs or statutory laws. So now, oh, more or less we are saying this is a kind of uniform civil code came in France. After France, in India, in the year 1840, we saw this report called Lex Loci report. Now, this report specifically talked about codification of Indian law, but it said that we should not go for the same personal laws for Hindus and Muslims. There can be tensions. If British government brings same criminal laws or same personal laws, then there can be a conflict. So they suggested please keep it out. That's why even if this report came into picture, after that government decided that we will not bring any one uniform civil code as such for India. After that, in the year 1941, we have this B.N. Rao committee. B.N. Rao committee recommended that we should have a codified Hindu law. So this is how a transition is taking place. So with the time, the idea of uniform civil code has got evolved with respect to India. Now, why do we actually need it? I've given you the basic idea of uniform civil code. But if you have to check what are the core arguments, why do we actually need uniform civil code? The first argument is that we have an article in the constitution itself, Article 44. It clearly says that state shall secure uniform civil code in India. So it is the responsibility of state governments, central government to take care of this particular section which is given in directive principles of state policy. So anyway, our constitution is saying it should be there. That's why we should have. Second thing, even India is a secular country. We say that secularism is the basic foundation or part of basic structure of India. So here to maintain that secularism, we need to have one law for every citizen of this country. If Hindus are treated differently, Muslims are treated differently, and Christians are treated differently, we cannot call it completely secular. This is the argument. And if we will have different laws for different people, how can we say that we all are united? Our national integration has taken place completely. We cannot say that. That is why the argument is that we must have one uniform civil code. Okay. Then it ensures gender justice. Now look at this angle, which I consider is one of the most important angle when we are discussing about uniform civil code. You see, many a times we have observed that in many religious texts or many customary practices, women have been put in a very derogatory position. They have always been oppressed most of the times. And the rules are always tilted towards male candidates. So, for example, if marriage is taking place, if divorce is taking place, if there is inheritance of property, let's say the property of one couple is getting distributed to their children. Most of the time, you must have observed that the property was given to male candidates and it was not given equally to women. Even if you look at the marriage angle remains as part of contention in public debates most of the times, that in one religion you can marry once, in another religion you can marry three times. Now there comes the question related to right to equality, which is part of Article 14 of the Constitution, which gets violated due to these things. So the point of contention is that if we have to ensure gender justice, if we have to ensure that every citizen of the country, which also includes women, and we have to maintain justice, we have to ensure justice for them, then uniform civil code must be there, because there are some practices which are not same and which are very very oppressive. That's why we need a same law throughout the country. Then the fourth argument is simplification of legal procedures. Now we have a very complex legal system. When you have so many laws for different religious groups or for tribal groups, then the law becomes complicated and complex. It's better you bring one law applicable to everyone, then your legal procedure will become very simplified. It will become easy to understand and to implement also. Okay? Now, these are the arguments given by people who say that uniform civil code should be there. But there is another side of this coin. There are some people who say that uniform civil code is not required in India. We should not bring it. They resist the idea completely. What is their argument? First, they say, sir, India is a very diverse country. You look at languages, races, castes, religions. We are very much diverse. Not every person is same as the other person. And the idea of uniform civil code has come from European countries who are more or less not at all diverse. Mostly if you see the European countries, they are Christian countries. And here comes the question of whether we can bring same law for such a diverse country. And mostly it will threaten the cultural diversity itself. It will make all the Indians same. When we have same rules, same laws in our personal matters also, then we all will become the same thing. Then the core element of India will be gone. This is one of the arguments. Then there is lack of consensus among communities. See, even if you bring any law, it has to be implemented on the ground. Let's say, for example, you brought a law that dowry is prohibited, dowry is not allowed. But if people are not accepting it, what's the use of that law? And if people start resisting, they start protesting outside, then that's not a good thing at all. So, whenever in a democracy you are bringing a law, people should accept the law. Otherwise, you cannot implement it. So, here comes the problem specifically from minority groups and the tribal groups. What is their problem? They are saying, we are different. In India, the majority might consider one law as right, but there are minority groups in which their cultural practices are different. In one religion, marriage is done in a specific manner. In another religion, it is done in a different manner. So if you apply one rule, whose rule will be applied? Will you take the rule from this religious group or the majority group? That's a questionable thing. And the minority is concerned that this will be an attack on their culture and identity. See, culture is very important. It is part of our identity. And because it is part of our identity, we cannot remove it altogether. So here minorities mostly resist this idea of uniform civil code. Not every person, but mostly we observe. And there is a chance that people might resist. If you bring a uniform civil code directly, specifically forcefully, people might resist. They may come to the courtrooms, they may come on the streets, social unrest may start. So that is a big concern before bringing any such thing. Now, why the minority groups are saying that we don't want this uniform civil code? Because when they look at constitution, they look at Article 25. Article 25 gives religious freedom to all the Indians in India. So religious freedom says that whatever is their religious practice, they can go ahead with it. It is their right, constitutional and fundamental right. Now, here you observe a tussle between fundamental rights and DPSPs, that is Directive Principles of State Policy, because Article 44 is saying you should have uniform civil code. 25 is saying you do whatever your religion tells you, you have the freedom to follow your own religion. So if my religion is telling me to go ahead with a particular practice, how can you bring uniform civil code and curb that practice? That is something being questioned. And that is why we don't see any consensus among the communities. The day on which there will be consensus, uniform civil code will become very easy to implement. Okay. Now it's not just about minority groups. There is problem from tribal groups also. You see, India has been mostly a traditional society, but there are many tribal groups in India, and tribal groups are very different from the mainstream Indians. Their practices are very different from the more or less whom we call as the majority. So their practices related to again marriage, inheritance, all these things, these are very, very different. Now, if you bring one law, then even you might be having impact on the customs or traditions of these tribal groups, and that will again be resisted by the tribal groups. Now, this is the major concern in Jharkhand now, that BJP party said that we will bring uniform civil code in Jharkhand if we come to power. But later on, they said that even if we bring uniform civil code, tribals will not be part of it. They will be exempted. It will be said that it will not be applicable to tribals. Tribals will have different rules, different laws altogether, their own customary traditional practices altogether. Now the question arises, if you are bringing uniform civil code and you are giving exemption to any community, whether it is tribals or minorities or anyone, then how can you call it uniform civil code? Because the meaning of uniform civil code itself is that it is applicable in the same fashion to every person. So it is not uniform at all. So this is something being questioned. Okay, so this is the question in Jharkhand right now. At last, there is an argument related to our federal structure. In India, we have federal structure. Federal structure means the power is not concentrated in the hands of one government, that is central government. Rather, central government has some power. Some power is there distributed with the state government. Now we have the third tier also in the form of Panchayati Raj system. So our system provides different powers to different segments. If we talk about center and state only, if you look at Schedule 7, it clearly talks about which powers are there with central government or the center as a state entity and state governments. Now, the point is, when you are looking at personal laws, these personal laws are part of concurrent list. If you read Schedule 7, there are three lists: central list, union list, state list, and concurrent list. Union list mentions powers of central government. The state list will mention powers of the state government. State government, when I'm saying, it means the parliamentary structure that exists at the state level, the state assembly, the state executive. And here I'm saying personal law is part of both things. That is, it is part of concurrent list, that is the third list. So the point is, both center and state can make laws related to personal laws. So there can be a conflict. Let's say central government brings uniform civil code for entire country. Suddenly one of the Indian state may say, we don't want this law. We want our own law. So we are bringing another law and we have power under concurrent list. So there can be conflict between our federal structures also. So that's why UCC should not be there. This is one of the arguments. So overall, you have understood the arguments in favor of Uniform Civil Code, arguments against Uniform Civil Code. Now look at what Supreme Court has said. Now Supreme Court has taken different stances which can be considered as evolutionary. This is the first case of 1985 Shahbano case. In this case, Supreme Court clearly said that we need a common or uniform civil code, and they urge central government that you should take some efforts to bring uniform civil code. So the stand has been taken very clearly. Then we have a case of 1995 Sarla Mudgal case. Even in this case, Supreme Court said that we should have uniform civil code for the sake of gender justice and national unity. So even again, Supreme Court is taking the stance that it should be there. Then we have this third case, Shaira Bano case of 2017. In this case, the case was related to instant triple talaq. Court considered that this practice is not a good practice. It is a discriminatory practice. And even though it is coming from religious segment, this practice should not be there in India. The constitution does not allow it. That's why in this, the court somewhere advocated that if we had uniform civil code, there would never have been any such practice existing in India which goes against gender justice or which is derogatory or oppressive in terms. Okay, so these case judgments are clearly showing that even Supreme Court is having a stance to support uniform civil code, and again obviously Supreme Court is taking this stance from the constitution itself, that is article 44. Clear? Now this is the side of court. What is the side of our executive, specifically the Law Commission? Law Commission in its 2018 consultation paper. At that point, Law Commission said that we do not need any uniform civil code as such. It is neither necessary nor desirable. We don't need it. Why? It is neither necessary because things are working properly. We don't need it. It is neither desirable also because there are chances of social unrest. There can be other problems. People are still not ready to accept it. So they said we should not have this. But with time, even Law Commission realized that it's a complex issue. We cannot directly say that it should be cancelled out. The plan should be cancelled out outrightly. So now in the year 2022, they said that we should think about it again. The earlier stance was we don't need it at all. Even they said that whatever laws we have, they are working. We can make some amendments in those laws. But in 2022, Law Commission said we are open to consultation. We are open to discussion. Let's discuss this topic of Uniform Civil Code. So here even Law Commission is taking a stance which is relatively balanced. Neither they are saying it should not be there, nor they are saying it should be there. They are saying let's discuss, let's have some communication, let's have some conversation on this topic. Okay. Now look at these recent developments. Recent developments, if you see Uttarakhand, the state of Uttarakhand had brought this law of Uniform Civil Code. Then if you look at Assam and Gujarat, they have also said, the government in Assam and government in Gujarat, they have also expressed their interest in bringing a law related to Uniform Civil Code. And right now in Jharkhand, as I told you, the BJP party is saying we are going to bring in Uniform Civil Code. So I'm trying to tell you that in recent times we are observing a trend or developments at the state level to bring in Uniform Civil Code. Okay, so this is the entire topic. Now if we have to bring this UCC, one thing we need to remind ourselves that whenever you are taking a very big decision, a very drastic kind of a change to change the entire structure and the system altogether. Few things are very important. One of them is your intention should be right. If you have some wrong intentions, hidden agendas, then that action can have very negative consequences. So your intention should be right. Then your timing should also be right. You cannot bring in law at any point of time. You have to see that whether people are ready, whether you can take that action rightly at that particular time. Have you already built up that narrative so that people will accept your action? So the timing also matters. And obviously, the third thing, the process through which you are bringing that action. So if you are bringing the law, you should go ahead with the consultation with all the stakeholders. You should consult with the communities like tribal communities or minority communities also. You need to consult, you need to bring consensus. You and your process should also be democratic. So if you follow the process rightly, then we can say we can implement uniform civil code. Again, the task is tough because we are a very diverse country, but it can definitely be done. Clear? Okay. Let me check if there is any doubt. No? Okay. Now the next topic is related to Indian cities or urbanization specifically. Urbanization is a topic mentioned directly in your syllabus, mains GS paper 1. So topic is highly important. Look at this previous year question. With a brief background of quality of urban life in India, introduce the objectives and strategy of smart city program. Now smart city program we are running. This is also a part of urbanization where we are trying to bring in some frameworks or some programs to help our urban population. So topic becomes important. Now look at the context. The context says that the world's urban population is continuously increasing. Right now, if you look at the numbers, there are 4.7 billion people who are living in the urban areas around the world. So if you look at entire population of the world, then you will see that 57% of the entire world population lives in urban areas and not rural areas. Interesting. And now it is being said that by the year 2050, this number 4.7 billion is going to get double. So somewhere 8 billion, 9 billion. This will be the number in by 2050. So that means urban population is increasing. Now, when urban population increases, when people migrate from rural areas to urban areas, they migrate for any reason. But when they are migrating, what will happen? Cities start becoming larger. Cities start becoming crowded. And this process is called as urbanization. Now, when we are saying that urban population is increasing consistently, this is happening throughout the world, even in India. So we are concerned about Indian cities. We are concerned about Indian urbanization because our cities are expanding, becoming overcrowded. Now, when a person moves from rural area to the urban area, many things in his life change. For example, in economic terms, he will have more opportunities to earn money. In rural areas, we hardly have any sector. We only have agriculture, nothing else. But if you go to urban areas, you have many industries, you have a service sector relatively developed that will provide you with many opportunities to work and gain economic standard. Then socially also, in villages, in rural areas, the social structures are very rigid. For example, caste system is existing in village, but if you go to urban area, nobody knows your caste, nobody knows about anything about you. So in that case, we can say socially also your status might differ, and environmentally also the kind of social environment as well as the environment in terms of, you can say, pollution. Let's say you know what kind of pollution is there in our urban areas. I don't need to give the example of Delhi, right? So these things, you see some drastic changes in the lives of people when they go ahead with urbanization, when they move towards urban cities. Now this phenomena of urbanization started when this industrial revolution started in 18th century in Britain. So first of all, we saw such phenomena in modern times in Britain because their industrialization started. Industries started being set up. So before industries came up, we had manufacturing plants, But manufacturing used to happen at a very small scale. When we say industrialization is taking place, that means you start producing goods in mass or very large quantities. So let's say you have a big factory from which you are getting lakhs and crores of products every single day. Then that is due to the industries. Now we have observed that there is a difference between Western countries and India when it comes to urbanization. If we look at Western countries specifically, their urbanization started as a result of industrialization. That means, what is urbanization? People moving from rural area to urban area. Why did people started moving there? Because there was industrialization in Western countries. So new industries were being set up, new job opportunities were coming up. That's why people started migrating from rural to urban areas over there. So they were going ahead with an idea that I'm going to earn a lot, I'm going to have good standard of living, etc., etc. Apart from that, at that point of time when they were industrializing, especially if I take the example of Britain, when Britain was industrializing, parallelly India was deindustrializing, or rather becoming very poor. Why? Because we had a system which we call as colonial rule. Colonial, that means India was a colony of Britain. So colony is just like just the way a bacteria gets into your body and starts eating everything from your body. Similarly, in colonial rule, things happen in the same way. That Britain is taking up money and wealth from India. As a data by economist Utsa Patnaik says that when colonial rule was there, almost over $45 trillion were taken out from India and sent to Britain or the Western economies. So you can say, if you look at the urbanization that was taking place in the Western countries, first of all, it was led by industrialization, and then this industrialization itself was somewhere led by wealth coming from other countries, right? Now compare this with India. What is happening in India? In India also, urbanization is taking place. Population is moving away from rural area to urban area, but not because they want some really good jobs. They are not going there by choice. Rather, they are going there by compulsion. They don't have any choice. Rather, in the rural areas, they don't have any industry. They don't have any opportunity to earn basic income. That's why, by compulsion, or we call it economic hardship, they are moving towards urban areas. Now, this phenomena is sometimes mentioned as poverty driven urbanization, which was not the case with urban Western countries, right? This is only the case with India and many other developing countries also, right? Now, recently, COVID 19 took place. What happened with COVID 19? Many people who were living in urban areas, they lost their job, they had to come back to their village areas. So we have reversed the phenomenon of urbanization to great extent. But what will they do by getting back to the rural areas? They came to know that they don't have any job there also. They don't have anything to eat also. So they have to go back again to the urban areas. So I'm trying to show you simply one thing, that in India urbanization is taking place, but with a very wrong reason, that is the poverty driven reason. Okay. Now, if I have to just jot down the points which show that these are the unique challenges which India faces. This is not something which is happening everywhere, but only Indian cities are facing these challenges with respect to urbanization. Then first is, we don't have a good data. See, we had to take up 2021 census, but because of COVID-19, government said that we'll not have census this year. And after that, although COVID has gone, we have still not gone ahead with this census because of other reasons, many political reasons also. But because we don't have census, we don't have data. So we don't know how many people in India are actually living in urban areas. We don't know. We have a report by World Bank which said that there are almost 40% people living in urban areas. But there are some other reports also. They claim that already more than 50% of people are living in urban areas. But because we don't have data, we can't come to any conclusion. This is a unique challenge we are facing. Then we don't have a good urban planning. Our urban cities are not at all planned. You look at it It is outdated spatial and temporal planning. This is the term we usually use. Spatial means space wise and temporal means time wise. For example, say space wise, there is no what we call it planned development that has taken place. Anyone is building any construction on their own. There is no planned thing that is happening over there. With some examples, like for example, there is Chandigarh, which is a good example where we have planned the things and according to the plan we have developed the city. But no other city is planned in that manner. Temporal means with time the developments have to take place. Let's say if you look at Mumbai, you know that the kind of migration that is taking place towards Mumbai, you have an idea that in next 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years, there will be many people coming to Mumbai. So it is the job of the government that you should already have a plan to ensure that when these people will come, they should have some space to live. They should get the amenities, they should get the infrastructure, everything. But we didn't plan these things, right? So the planning part is very poor with respect to India. Now, what happened in 1980s specifically? They started a phenomenon of deindustrialization. Means we had some traditional industries in India, but we saw that some changes taking place. Specifically, IT sector started booming. So although IT sector boomed, but the other industries they started getting lowered. So here some kind of deindustrialization, and because of which many people started losing their jobs, which is not a good thing. When they started losing jobs in the urban areas, now they started migrating, but they didn't go to rural areas. If you look at a city, let's say this is a city, so this central region will have all the opportunities, all the infrastructure, everything. But if you go to the outskirts region, if you're living in these regions, these are outskirts or peri-urban areas. These are neither completely rural areas nor completely urban areas. These are the areas which are transitioning from rural to urban. So people started migrating to these regions after this 1980s time period. And here they don't have the infrastructure just like we have in urban settings. In urban areas, we expect that everything will be there, basic infrastructure will be there, but it is not there. Okay. Then informal sector dominance. If you look at Indian economy, specifically about our urban areas, we see that most of the people who are in the job, they are not in a formal job. Formal means simply things are formalized. Let's say I am in a formalized job. Let's say I'm working in an IT company. The company will give me some leaves. There will be paid leaves also. Will give me some benefits. I'll have Sunday off. I'll get payment on timely basis. So everything is formalized. The benefits, there will be stable conditions. There will be some security. But if you look at urban areas in India, 90% of the people working, they are working in informal sector and not formal sector. If I give you an example of informal sector, let's say a person is working for Zomato or Swiggy or something, he's a delivery boy and he's not employed officially in Zomato or Swiggy. Rather, whatever delivery he's making today, he's getting payment on that basis. He don't have a salaried job as such. So he doesn't know whether tomorrow he's going to get the deliveries or not. He doesn't have any security. He doesn't get any pension. So he or she will not have stable conditions because of this informal sector, right? Then environmental conditions. I don't need to tell that. Look at Delhi, you will know what environmental condition is all about. In our urban areas, we have very highly polluted cities. Nowadays, we are even observing urban flooding, specifically in Chennai, Hyderabad, because our development of cities was not planned. That's why we observe that whenever there is a very what we can in the very less time span when there is rainfall, a very intense and high amount of rainfall is there, at that point of time suddenly we say that there is flooding in urban areas. Okay, because we did not plan our cities. If we would have planned it rightly earlier, then this problem would not have been there. Then nowadays we are also observing this heat island effect. Heat island means the urban areas are relatively more heated, more warm than the rural areas or other parts of the world. Why this is happening? Because if you look at urban areas, the material we have, we are constructing larger buildings, we are building the roads and all this infrastructure. For that you are making use of concrete, for that you are making use of asphalt, etc. All these things combined, they trap the heat, and the heat will not go back to space. So the area will become intensely heated. Then you don't have much forest or the parks in your urban areas. In rural areas you have immense or substantial amount of forest land or trees, etc. But you don't have that too, and you don't have much space wherein the air can flow. That's why overall the cities seem to have become heated island. Okay, that's why we call it heat island effect. Then social segregation and inequality. If you look at cities, there is so much inequality over there. You can see this. For example, these DFLs, Dahliyas in Gurugram. Now this is an area where people are buying apartments at the cost of rupees 100 crore at least. This is the starting price of the apartment. And on the other side, you will have some slums wherein people do not even have their basic necessities completed. They don't have the basic things like the food to eat, the shelter to live. On the other hand, we have people who are spending 100 crore on just one apartment. So we can see this inequality in urban areas. Earlier, it was being thought that when urbanization will be there, the caste, religion, class, these things will not matter. But still, these factors are important even in our urban settings. So that is a cause of concern for us. At last, infrastructure strain. Although government is building a lot of infrastructure, but see the number of people who are migrating, it is so much that even if government is building so much infrastructure, it is not enough. So we call this phenomena as over urbanization or overcrowding, wherein people are coming in so much large number that the urban city doesn't look like urban city because it is not even providing basic services to the people living there. For example, you see water shortage. There is this problem of water shortage nowadays in Bangalore, in Chennai. This is happening over there. You look at power shortage, power cuts. Many times we hear this news. Then there are health issues also. When you do not have good air quality, when you do not have water quality, and overcrowding is there, people are living in overcrowded areas, you will not have good health condition. So these are all unique challenges Indian cities are facing. And when you're looking at all these problems, you have to give solution to each of the problem. For example, we said we don't have census, then the solution is bring census. You don't have planning, then bring some planning. That is important. Then you said informal sector is dominating. You have to formalize your economy. That is the solution. You don't have good environment, well, you will have to work towards that. So nowadays we are building some forest land, or sometimes we call it smaller parks in the urban areas. That we are doing, that we can do. Then social segregation, government will have to come up with many schemes through which they can reduce this inequality. They can go ahead with the welfareism. And as far as infrastructure issue is concerned, there's no way, government will have to work very hard to bring infrastructure. And one more thing, our problem of urbanization, or the problems of urbanization, lie in the migration which is taking place in a very wrong direction, one way direction. We need to do one thing. We need to solve the problems of our rural areas. If there are basic amenities in the rural areas, if you get education, health, and you get a basic job, you have basic industries in rural areas, people will not migrate in these numbers to urban areas. So we have to solve the crisis that we have in rural areas to solve all these problems of urban areas also. Clear? Now, government has already come up with many programs. For example, these initiatives, Smart City, Atal Mission of Rejuvenation, Amrit, then Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, National Urban Policy Framework, Swachh Bharat. All these programs are there, which are important, which government has taken place. And these are two cities which have done recently relatively better. Chandigarh and Indore, we can say. Okay. Now, next article. Any doubt? No doubt. Okay. Now, the next article is related to Aditya L1 mission. Recently, some results, first science results from Aditya L1 has come out. Now this topic is important. You see this previous year question related to Juno mission of NASA. If they can ask about Juno mission, they can ask about Aditya L1 mission also. Aditya L1 mission was planned to study sun. We wanted to study sun. So sun's atmosphere, sun's surface area, the winds that are coming from sun, which are called as solar wind. We wanted to study everything. That's why India, that is specifically ISRO, decided that we'll send a mission to study sun. But you can't go directly to the sun. You cannot land on sun and study there because sun is very heated. Okay, there is radiation coming from it, there is nuclear reaction taking place over there, and your mission, whichever satellite you are sending, that cannot survive when it comes so near to sun, right? So this was the basic idea. When they had to send this, ISRO decided that they are going to send their mission to L1 Lagrangian point. Now you need to know what is L1, what is Lagrangian point. See, when you look at this planet, let's say this is sun and this is, you say, earth. Okay, now in case you are sending a satellite to this particular place, what will happen in this universe? Everything will carry some gravity. So earth's gravity, whenever you are sending something, then your gravity will act on this particular thing. So earth's gravity will try to pull this particular thing, let's say satellite, it will try to pull this satellite towards earth. But similarly, we have sun. Sun will also use its own gravity. So sun will also pull this satellite. So earth is also pulling this side, sun is pulling this side. What will happen? Well, I don't think the satellite can survive over here. Something will happen. Now let's say sun's gravity is more than the earth. In that case, the satellite will directly go to sun and get merged into it. Or if earth's gravity is more and then the distance is also less, then it may go to earth directly. So scientists decided that we'll do one thing. We'll reach to one place where the gravity of both sun and earth will become balancing. Let's say this is the point. We call it L1. Here you have sun and here you have earth. This is a specific point in the universe or in our solar system where if you put a planet, whatever amount of gravity is being applied by sun is exactly equal to the gravity coming from earth side. So it is getting balanced, and that's why this particular satellite can remain in this region only. It will not move towards sun or not move towards earth. So if it remains in a stable manner over here, then we can say our mission can study sun. It will be stable over here and then it will study whatever is coming from sun, right? These points, all these points where this gravity of these two different things, two planets or two stars or anything, gets stabilized, at that particular point is called as Lagrangian point. See this, we call it Lagrangian points. Now it is not like there is only one point. There can be multiple points which can be Lagrangian points. Let's say for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say this is earth. So there can be one point over here, L1, L2, L3, L4. These can be there. I am saying all these are Lagrangian points. And here we can put our satellite. One of them is L1, where we have sent our Aditya L1 mission. The name L1 is coming from this Lagrangian point. I hope it is clear. Okay. Now one factual thing you need to know, that this L1 point, there is a round or a halo surrounding this L1 Lagrangian points. And the Aditya L1 mission that we have sent is actually moving in this particular halo. Okay, it will not go beyond this, but it will remain in this halo only. It is not directly at the L1 position, but the halo of L1. Okay, this is the factual point you should remember. That's all about Aditya L1. Now, the next article is related to new coastal zone plan of Kerala. Coastal zone. See, we have coastal areas which we need to protect. Right now we are urbanizing, we are developing, we are constructing new buildings, we are going ahead with many economic activities in coastal areas also, but that may have repercussions. There can be damage to the ecosystem of that area. So we decided that we will regulate coastal areas. So this topic is important for GS paper 3, that includes conservation, environment, pollution, degradation, etc. etc. So topic is important. Look at this PYQ. Explain the causes and effects of coastal erosion and what are the available coastal management techniques. So coastal management is important. So coastal regulation is also important. Now recently, Union government, specifically this Ministry of Environment, they have approved a plan, that is Coastal Zone Management Plan. This plan is specifically for 10 districts of Kerala, and this has been done as part of CRZ, Coastal Regulation Zone. Now see, in the year 1991, an idea came that we need to protect our coastal areas. For that, government brought some rules. Those rules are included in the CRZ, that is Coastal Regulation Zone. Now they provide the rule set that what all needs to be done in the coastal regions, which regions are highly protected. You can't build any construction over there. No human being can go in some areas. Some areas will be there where people can go. So coastal regulation zone was actually divided into different categories. So let's say you have this coastal area. They may say that this particular area is coastal regulation zone CRZ1. CRZ1 means ecologically sensitive area. If you look at any mangrove forest, if you allow constructions in the mangrove forest areas, if you allow human intervention in that area, then mangroves will not survive. And if mangroves are gone, that will be very much dangerous and can lead to many disasters. So government said there will be high restriction in these areas, and only if you are going for some conservation activity or there is some national security issue, let's say military wants to go there, they can go. No other normal human being is going to enter in this area. So such was the protection given to CRZ1 classification. Then you have CRZ2 classification also for some urban areas near to the coastal regions. So there is some kind of construction allowed, but there are some restrictions also. Then CRZ3, so some relatively less developed area or rural area which is near to coastal areas. Now here there can be areas where people are living already. There are villages which are densely populated also. So for them relatively lesser. See, here restrictions are very high. Here relatively lesser restrictions will be there. Then you have CRZ4. When you go away from this coastal area in the waters, so till the 12 nautical miles from the coast, this area is also considered as a restricted zone. You cannot go for such developmental activities over there. So if you go for developmental activities, the fishes in that area, the ecosystem that is there, that will get harmed. That was the reason. So this CRZ is already there. As part of this CRZ, we have come up with this idea of coastal zone management plan specifically for Kerala and some 10 coastal districts of Kerala. So important, we can say. Clear? Now, some very short kind of news items which we need to know. One of them is related to India and Sri Lanka, related to the Park Bay fishermen issue. This is important for you to know the international relations part and to understand the relations of India and Sri Lanka, wherein some challenges related to fishermen issue comes into picture. See, if you look at the map, here is the map. Map of India, map of Sri Lanka. Here, this is the Park Strait. So, here we are saying that because earlier when the British rule was there, at that point of time we hardly had any much problem as such, but with time we started getting a problem of fishermen. See, there are many fishermen living in Tamil Nadu and there are many living in Sri Lanka who go to these waters to catch fishes, but the boundary line was not very clear earlier, that what will be that international line beyond which the people of this country will not go or people of that country will not come to this side. So we had problem. The problem actually started when the Cold War, the Civil War situation was there in Sri Lanka. So because of civil war, some intense things started. India-Sri Lanka relations were also changing, and after that time period, we came to this point wherein we tried to know what can be done between India and Sri Lanka in fisherman crisis. Now this line, if you see right now, if you're observing this particular line, this is a line called as Maritime Boundary Agreement line. So this was drawn in the year 1974 to 76. Some agreements took place between Indian government and Sri Lankan government, and we decided that this is going to be the international maritime line between India and Sri Lanka. So fishermen of Sri Lanka will not cross this line and come here. Indians will not go this side. But now there is one more problem. There is one island called Kachathivu Island, which is somewhere here we can see. Now this Kachathivu Island, although on this line, if you see, it is in the right side. So only Sri Lankan people should go there. But people of Tamil Nadu said, we have been going to this Kachathivu Island to dry our nets and all since ages. Since ancient time we are going there. How can you give this Kachathivu to Sri Lanka? So there is again a conflict. Okay, so the conflict is there. Government of India and Sri Lanka both are now trying to solve this issue. Now we have this India Sri Lanka joint working group. This working group tries to solve this issue through some negotiation, through communication. So we are trying that our fishermen and their fishermen should have some direct dialogue, and through cooperation we want to solve this issue. Okay, so this is the entire issue we can say. And most of the time we hear this news that many fishermen from Tamil Nadu, they got arrested in Sri Lanka. For example, 30 arrests this year, 140 fishermen and 200 boats currently detained by Sri Lanka. This data clearly shows that the issue is intensifying and it should be solved, right? Now, this is also important. You should know that there is this deep sea fishing project which is also being encouraged by government. Government is saying that Tamil Nadu specifically, that instead of going for fishing in the surface regions, go for deep sea fishing. So there will not be much fight with the Sri Lankans, and this will be good for fishermen also. So all these things are going on. Okay. And the last article of the day related to BRICS summit, which is going to boost India-Iran ties. Now this is about India-Iran relations which are building up. Part of your international relations, you can say. Now recently this 16th BRICS summit, this took place in Russia's Kazan. Now in this particular BRICS summit, India and Iran both were there and both had high level talks, high level meeting. And in these talks, we are trying to enhance our relationship, make it better. Please understand why both countries are important for each other. What are the mutual interests? Look at Iran. Right now, Iran is facing sanctions. Sanctions from the Western countries. It is involved in war with Israel, fighting war with the US also. So in this situation, when such high tensions are there and economic sanctions have been put on, Iran needs some partners. Iran looks at India. India looks like a growing country, a growing market, a country whose profile is getting built over time, and we can see that our power is increasing. And here, Iran wants India to become a negotiator, a mediator kind of a thing to help Iran. For example, when Iran became part of BRICS, Iran became part of BRICS as well as SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. India's role was very important in this. India had played a key role to bring in Iran onto the table or in these particular organizations. So, Iran looks at India as a good partner as such. If you look at India, how India looks at Iran, well, we have our energy needs. You look at Iran, you see there is natural gas, there is oil, and we need natural gas, we need oil. So we want that supply. Even India is building this Chabahar port. If you have seen in the map, somewhere here you will see Chabahar port. We are trying to build this particular port. We have investment over there in Iran. Then we want that we should connect with other countries through the route of Iran. Because see, India has our neighbor as Pakistan, who is not going to help us at all. The conditions of Afghanistan are not good, so they are not going to help. So we have Iran who might help us. For example, we want to go to the region of this Central Asia. Go means we want to connect with them for our trade, for anything, for connectivity. So we can make use of this particular track. We can reach to Afghanistan also, Central Asia also, even Russia also. So India wants that this project called INSTC project, which can bring connectivity to this region, that should be developed. And Iran becomes very important to build such projects. So India is also looking at Iran in a very good way or in a very enthusiastic and optimistic way. We even talk about this Iran-Oman-India gas pipeline that can provide us consistent supply of gas. All these things can be done. Now, if you look at history, specifically after this 2001 agreement between India and Iran, we even started cooperating in the defense field. For example, we were working with drones, missiles, hypersonic technology, etc., etc. But because some sanctions came, we could not go ahead with that level of cooperation with Iran. We already have some joint counterterrorism exercises which we are conducting with Iran, but we are having collaboration, but it is not going with the same pace which we wanted earlier. And here what we need is, we need to solve this. See, in this war which is taking place, we are not taking complete side of Israel, and nor we are taking the side of Iran. We are trying to balance. And here also the relations with Iran, if we have to maintain, we cannot directly support the country of Israel in the war. So somewhere India is trying to balance this relationship and bring in some diplomatic solution or some diplomatic ways to enhance our relationship. Okay, so you should know. So the BRICS summit which took place, there also India and Iran are cooperating. They are trying to build our relationship. Clear? Now, the time is for practice questions. Any doubts? No doubts. So, first prelims practice question with reference to Coastal Regulation Zone 2019. CRZ notification 2019 allows construction and development activities closer to coastline in specific areas compared to previous regulation zones. Now, this is a factual question rather. The CRZ, it came in 1991, but it was amended to some extent in the year 2019, and there were some relaxations. So this statement is right. This mandates a uniform no development zone of 50 meters from the high tide line across all coastal areas in India. It is not all coastal areas. I talked about the CRZ zones, CRZ 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are different rules. It is not same for all coastal areas. That's why second statement will be wrong. So answer will be A, 1 only. Then Aditya L1 is placed exactly at Lagrangian point L1 since it allows Aditya to remain at same position between Sun and the Earth. Well, not exactly at L1. I told you that there is a halo that is orbiting on that halo. This is wrong. The key objective of L1 is to study the solar atmosphere and solar wind. Obviously, solar wind, solar atmosphere, corona, everything will be studied. So this is right. So 2B, right answer. Now, last is this mains practice question. Discuss the challenges and implications of implementing uniform civil code in India, especially in culturally diverse states like Jharkhand. How can UCC balance constitutional vision of secularism and gender justice with the need to respect cultural diversity and tribal autonomy? They've asked about challenges and implications first, so you should talk about it. So in the introduction, first just give some brief about Uniform Civil Code. You can mention Article 44 also, or you can give the context of Jharkhand, or something you can write about it. Then you write the challenges directly. In the challenges, cultural diversity issue, that there are different cultures over here, tribal people have issues with this, everything you can mention, that there is no consensus. Then what will be the implications? Right, what will be the impact of it, that you can discuss. At the end you can mention that we need to balance uniform civil code with diversity. We can't say that we don't want diversity, we can't say it, we don't know, we don't want uniform civil code. We need to bring both the things and we have to balance them. So this is how you can write the entire answer. Okay, I hope you understand. Okay, now it is done. If you have any doubts, you can mention in the comment box. Thank you so much.